Welcome. I'm Hugh Massie, the chairman and founder of DNA Behaviour International, which is a global behavioural sciences company. But that's not what I'm here to talk to you about today. I am a boy without a father. About 25 years ago, at my home in Sydney, Australia, I had a drinks party for a group of people and had a cousin and a great friend of mine, Roger, there. And we were talking and just catching up. And Roger looked up at a photograph that I had of my father. And he looked back around at me and said, "Hugh, your dad, who was also called Hugh, would be so proud of you. But life must have been really hard for you, Hugh, because you didn't have him in your life. And you didn't have someone to set boundaries for you, to guide you at difficult moments, to be that mentor in many ways, to learn how to be a man." And I didn't really know what all of that meant at that time, and I was 33 years old when Roger said that to me, and I hadn't thought about it that hard. I just knew I didn't have a father. And what happened in my family was that when I was about 6 months old, my father passed out while doing an operation. He was an eye surgeon. And he had a terminal brain tumour, and he lived for about another 8 months. And then he passed away. And at the time, my mother was just pregnant with my younger brother, John, who was born a month after my father passed away. And for most of the time that my father was sick or convalescing at home after surgeries that he had, I was left with my grandmother. And she looked after me with some home help at the time. And a little bit later on, when I was about 2.5, so at the time my father died, I was 15 months old. At 2.5, I went to kindergarten, and the kindergarten teacher said to my mother, just after a week or so of me being at kindergarten, "Has Hugh been traumatised by something?" And my mother, Pamela, said, "Yes, his father died a year, 18 months ago." And I think that was a little wake-up call for my mother that there was an impact on me from my father dying. And I was, clearly what it had done was it made me very inward. I wasn't playing with the other boys and girls at the kindergarten. I wasn't really learning a lot either. And then I went to school, and when I was about 8 years old, again, I was having learning difficulties at school, and maths was a particular problem. I think English was as well. And my grandmother, who was my father's mother, figured out that maybe if she put a dollar sign in the school maths book, in the textbooks, across the equations or the exercises that I had to do, it might spur me to start to get the maths right. And that worked. And so we then went on a journey of regular coaching for me to pick myself up academically. And then 18 months later, my mother felt that it would be important for me and my brother to go to a boarding school to get the man's influence. So I, being 9 years old at the time, went first because I was the older, and a year later my brother went. And that was, while going to boarding school was tough in many ways, and the school was quite tough, they were an all-boys boarding school, it did put me in the male environment, and I learned a lot of great lessons. And I'm very thankful for my mother, particularly in later life, as I reflect on all this, that she did do what she did, even though it wasn't an easy decision for her. But from a learning perspective, I still had struggles learning. And my mum watched that and could see that because it was coming home in the results. And she pulled me out of school, the boarding school, each Sunday and took me to a coach. And I had to spend my day doing academic studies to catch up. And again, I'm absolutely thankful for my mother that she did that, because I went from starting high school in the E grade and finishing somewhere probably more around the bottom of the A grade. You know, I ended up being a pretty good student when I finished school, and was able to go to university and get an accountancy degree, and later become a chartered accountant. So, you know, all of that work that was done by my mum in supporting me was important, but she could never be my father. Luckily, she did remarry when I was 16 years old to another Roger, my stepfather, and he started to show me the ropes of things that boys do, activities, you know, and we did a lot of swimming, surfing. He got me into a surf lifesaving club in Sydney, and I learned to become a surf lifesaver, or in American terms, a lifeguard. I think that was a life-changing moment for me, for the friends I met, the confidence I got. And I went from a kid that was somewhat plump and not sporting at school, although capable, to being far more athletic. And of course I grew 6 inches or so in the year I left school. But that was from the attention I got from my stepfather, who was there in a lot of ways as a mentor. And no, not long after I had the conversation with the first Roger I mentioned about the impact of not having a father, a couple of years later, and I was working out my life plan and what was I going to do, I wanted to build into my life having a foundation, a platform to mentor other kids so that they could become empowered, get life confidence, get exposed to opportunities that they would not otherwise get, because that was the big gap for me. There are so many things that a young boy needs to be able to talk to another man about, to learn what to do, to understand. A mother, no matter how good she is, and my mother was outstanding, can't do it all. And this is where Boys Without Fathers steps in to, in a way, be that mentoring, nurturing friend, stepfather to guide boys on how to become a man of influence. And last year in our business, in the DNA business, I was doing a lot of podcasts of other business leaders. And what I discovered was a number of us did not have a father. And the issues that we all faced growing up, obesity, learning difficulties or literacy, character development, emotional development, were all challenges. Really, in a lot of ways, we've all had a fight for our identity, and it's been harder work because we didn't have a father. And Boys Without Fathers is a platform that we can bring to millions of kids who have lost their father. In America, there are 46% of the homes in America the father is missing in some way. Whether, you know, in my circumstances it was caused from death. In others it's because the father's left the home in some way, or there's a divorce. It's a huge number, and the impacts on the kids are huge. I'm a lucky person because of what was given to me in the love and support from my mother, and the fact that she went over what was required in terms of ensuring that I developed and got access to opportunities. And I think my grandmother there behind her did some of that too in her role as a grandmother. And again, I am just so lucky for that, but it can't replace the father. But Boys Without Fathers can be a platform to, again, I just want to say, help many boys become men of influence.